Good afternoon. My name is Brandon Zarb. This is performance and optimization data analysis among U.S. fast food restaurants and chains. Okay, so for our data set, I utilized Kaggle and I found a very comprehensive data set that contained detailed information among the top 50 fast food restaurant chains in the United States for 2019. This spreadsheet, which I've attached a link below because it's too big to feature in this slide, contains the company name, segment category, which could be burgers, snacks, chickens, etc., sales in millions, sales per unit in thousands, total franchised units, total company owned units, different from franchises, total units. So this would be the franchises and the company or corporate stores combined, and then unit change from 2018 to 2019. So the proposed questions. Question one, how do sales compare across different fast food categories? Number two, what is the ratio of franchised units to company-owned units for each company, and how does this affect their sales performance? This is a really interesting question. Um, you might think that corporate stores would do a little bit better sales-wise, but that's not always the case. Question three, what companies experienced the highest growth in number of stores from 2018 to 2019? And question four, how does sales per unit vary among the top 50 fast food companies, and what factors do we think might influence this? So this is our first problem in depth. Decided to use a pie chart to represent this category. As you can see, in the United States, top 50 burger chains are by far the most popular. Coming in second, we have snack. Snack is a little bit of a misleading category, and the main reason is because it really becomes a catch-all, and it also represents chains such as Starbucks and Dunkin' Donuts that you might consider coffee or beverage, but in the QSR and the restaurant business, they've been categorized as snacks. So, um, in our findings, as I said, burger category is by far the most saturated market share in the United States. Snacks follows. Third, we've got chicken at 12.7%. I think chicken has exploded in growth most recently, hence all of the new restaurants that we see in the market, such as Chick-fil-A, Wing Snob, Wingstop. Detroit Wing Company is a local company. Sandwich share comes in fourth, global, and then surprisingly, pizza is the smallest at 9.5%. So, as I stated earlier, burger is the dominant category, highlighting its significant popularity and sales volume when compared to other categories. Our second question, ratio of franchise units to company-owned units. So this is a really interesting question because it shows us, which stores are owned primarily as corporate stores, whereas which are owned by individually licensed franchisees. So if you look at the chart to your right, the blue area represents franchisees, whereas the orange represents corporate stores. So you can see by just briefly looking at this chart Franchisees account for the vast majority of fast food in the United States. McDonald's and Subway lead the pack, primarily operating through franchisees. Starbucks is a bit of an exception. Actually, it's a great exception because they do have a significant number of company-owned stores. Dunkin' Donuts and Taco Bell are nicely balanced with a good mix of franchisees and company-owned units. The total number of units varies greatly amongst fast food, and you could put together an entire presentation just discussing that bullet point. But there's many factors: guest average, square footage for stores. There's demographic and regional factors. We do find that companies with a more franchise unit tend to have a broader geographic reach. The conclusion of this data set is that the operational model, franchise versus company owned, varies quite significantly across companies, depending on what type of segment they're in, which impacts their overall reach and most likely impacts their sales strategies as well. Our third, companies with highest growth in number of stores. Starbucks, again, leads the pack, showing a very steady increase in the number of units year over year. Now, granted, this is a small sample size, but Taco Bell also displays consistent growth in store numbers. Jersey Mike's, Panera, Chick-fil-A are among the companies experiencing what I would call notable growth. Overall, we saw a lot of growth in the market between 2018 and 2019 that's relatively consistent among brands. Now, if we fast forward to COVID, I suspect we would see a wildly different chart. And last, we also have companies such as Domino's and Wingstop, who currently is at 2,000 units as of 2024. So you can see on this chart that between 2019 and now, they've grown at least 500 stores. They're still showing an upward trend. And finally, we have a heat map here. Very interesting chart to represent our sales per unit variation. So this is a very, very important indicator for these companies. And I'm sure these numbers are looked at extremely closely at a corporate level. So we do find there's a positive correlation between sales per unit in the thousands and unit change from 2018. So that means the brands that are growing in footprint from 2018 to 2019 are also showing an increase in sales per unit. Total units have a negative correlation with sales per unit, suggesting that more units might lead to lower average sales per unit. And I'll give you a great example of this. I think Starbucks. How often do we see a Starbucks while we're out driving, and it seems only a few blocks or maybe a short distance later, we see another Starbucks? I know as a personal anecdote, when I go grocery shopping, there's a Starbucks inside the grocery store, as well as directly across the street, as well as about a quarter mile up the road. So although they're experiencing growth in units between 2018 and 2019, this would contribute potentially to a negative correlation between sales per unit as they oversaturate their market. The chicken category shows a moderately positive correlation with sales per unit. Pizza and snack categories have negative correlations with sales per unit. And the correlations between sales per unit in the various categories do tend to vary in strength. And I think that has a lot to do with consumer trends and preferences. It's a little tricky to compare, for example, Domino's Pizza and Dunkin' Donuts. Uh, we might go to a Dunkin' Donuts in the morning to get a coffee, and we might go back at lunchtime to get a snack or a pick me up. Whereas ordering a large pizza, is more something you might do once a week. So again, as we look at this data, it's important to think about the individual categories themselves. But ultimately, sales per unit are influenced by several factors, with unit growth, category type playing probably the most notable roles. The variation in correlation strengths indicate to me that different strategies might be needed for different categories to maximize sales per unit. And that just means that McDonald's is not going to have the same corporate strategy as Little Caesars Pizza, as Starbucks, as Wingstop. Overall conclusion: the data analysis provides a comprehensive overview of the fast food industry, highlighting the dominance of the burger category, operational models of leading companies, growth trends, and factors influencing sales per unit. The burger category leads in market share, reflecting consumer preferences. Companies use different strategies, with some relying heavily on franchising and others on company-owned units, affecting their reach and performance. Growth trends indicate successful expansion for companies like Starbucks and Taco Bell. Finally, sales per unit are influenced by various factors, suggesting the need for tailored strategies to maximize performance across different categories. Unfortunately, I'm sorry to share that my group chose not to participate in this presentation. I've got, I'll include a link to our Canvas discussion for verification, but I did not receive any help whatsoever on any component of this presentation. So thank you very much. This is Brandon Zarb.